Okay, today mostly I'll just cover how to make some basic shapes inside of Illustrator and Photoshop. When we're done with this kind of project, we'll try another application a little bit later called Sketch. And you might like Sketch, but it's really important to know Photoshop as well. It's almost like, do I just keep using Google Docs because Google Docs is what I've been used to? Or do I need to learn Microsoft Word? No, you need to learn Office, right? The whole world uses Microsoft Office. I know you might have used Google Docs in high school and you love it so, but you know, you're gonna have to learn Microsoft products. You need to learn Excel in your life. Excel is a must to learn, right? So that's the same here. You might love Sketch. Sketch is a great application. It's different than Photoshop and Illustrator. It's great for building interfaces because it's easier than these programs, I think. It is for building interfaces. But you still need to learn Photoshop. You still have to learn Illustrator. It is like the most common application that everybody has to know. Right? That's my whole point as far as Microsoft Word. So we made a search box inside of Illustrator. Today we'll make some very simple shapes. We'll do the masking one more time. Do you remember when we did the masking? We're going to do a masking on a person's face or a head or a photo with a circle. So again, I'm mostly going to do everything in Photoshop, but today we will do a little bit of Illustrator, but mostly Photoshop. So again, I'm going to make a new file in Photoshop. Again, we're doing a web design, so I'm going to start with the medium web. How do I get to the medium web? Well, if you go over here to File, New Document inside of Photoshop, you get this window right here. And inside that window, you'll notice there is an option for web, which is the most common web sizes. And then they have most common, large web, medium web, web minimum, right? I'm going to use medium web right here. I'm going to click on it. And then again, I'm going to leave all this default over here. Don't worry, I'll show you how to add to the bottom, because if you remember, I'm going to add. Oh, somebody was teaching how to do animation inside of Photoshop. Look at that. Was he teaching that in the video class, Corey? How to do the animation?
They mentioned yesterday for like 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. You guys need to learn how to make a GIF animation. I have to teach you that as well, probably. Right? You all seen animated GIFs, right? Okay. Maybe we could do that today at the very end. How about that? Okay. So again, this is a common web interface right here. Okay. Again, I'm not ready to show you how to put it together all in one interface yet because we don't have the pieces. I'm just showing you how to build pieces today. Basic pieces again. Let's start with a gradient. Gradients, as far as web design, were not very popular because they were difficult to do. In the old ways of doing things, what we used to do is fake gradients. Here, I'll show you what I would do. Okay. So in the old days, what I mean, as by old days, is that we would make graphics to make a gradient. But today with CSS and programming, I can actually program a gradient using programming without using a graphic. So in the old days, if I wanted to have, let's say, a bar across the top of my website, and I wanted it to be kind of light at the top, maybe a light blue to a dark blue down here, right? What I would do is I would make a small image inside of Photoshop, like this, maybe even 1 pixel wide, 1 pixel image that goes from light blue to dark blue here. Then I would take that and use it as a background to a shape, a div. A div is a box. If those of you in web design, we make divs. Divs are boxes in web design. I would take this graphic and make it a background to the div. And what it would do then is it would copy that across, all the way across. So it would look like a seamless gradient. It would look seamless because this is a graphic that's being duplicated across. But it's not a real gradient. It was a fake gradient from an image. But that's how, for probably 20 years, 25 years, that's what we did. But then CSS3 came along. Okay? And in CSS3, you can program a gradient quite easily. In fact, there's software that helps you do that. You don't even have to know it. You just use the software, it makes the gradient for you, copy the code, put it in your div, and boom, you're done. Wow, great. But for us, we're going to fake it. Of course, we're just making a mock-up inside of Photoshop. So here's how I would make a nice banner at the top of my website, gradient-wise. To do that, I'm going to use a shape. Remember the shapes that we use over here, right? And I'm going to make a box across the top. Again, we could put our guidelines out there if you want. Remember, let's just say we want maybe 100 pixels on each side. I'm just going to fake it here. I'm going to put some guidelines. Do you remember how to make a guideline? You put your cursor inside of the ruler and drag out. So get used to that just so that you start knowing guidelines. The nice thing about guidelines is that you can snap things to the edge of them. Okay, next I'm going to make a box. Again, I'm going to use the rectangle tool that is right here. And don't worry about color. Doesn't even matter what color because we're going to put a gradient in there. So it doesn't matter. It could be black, it could be green, it could be purple. I don't really care. And I'm going to draw a box across the top and release my mouse. And it makes this horrible, ugly. And let's turn the stroke off. There we go, no stroke. So it makes this ugly, ugly green box across the top of my page. And if you don't have layers open, you can open layers. Again, most of the stuff we do is in layers here. So if I go to Windows, Layers, Window, Layers, it'll bring up the Layers window. So we have an ugly green box at the top of my website, perfect for a website banner. Okay, but we don't want an ugly green box, we want a gradient. We want to do our light blue gradient. Let me zoom in a little bit so we can see. And remember, the spacebar gives you a hand. Move it around. There we go. Okay, so I have a green box, green fill, no stroke, and it's a shape. See how it says shape there? You can do a path, you can do pixels, you can do, these are the options. Make sure you do shape. Most of the stuff I do is in a shape. To put the gradient in your shape, and if you made a path or a pixel, you can always just delete it by, using the move tool. Click on it, hit delete on the keyboard, boom, it goes away. Okay, so if you use the move tool and you click on something, it'll go, and then hit delete on the keyboard, the big delete, not the little one next to FN, but the big one. Okay, again, I'm using a rectangle tool. Let me do another one. I'm gonna make another one. Move my windows around here. Here we go. Rectangle tool, draw a box. Release my box. Okay. So again, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see. Okay, so I have a green shape. I want to put a gradient. In the layers window itself, you'll notice there is an FX at the very bottom right there. It's called FX. That stands for Add a Layer Style. Add a layer style. In that layer style, you have all kinds of things that are very useful for you. You have a bevel and emboss. Woo, avoid that. I don't like that. Stroke is the line that goes around it. So remember, I was going to turn the stroke off over here, wasn't I? I don't want a stroke there. But this is a different stroke. This is like you're adding a stroke to the object. Inner shadow is quite nice. Outer shadow, inner glow, satin, color overlay, gradient overlay, pattern overlay, outer glow, drop shadow. The one I'm going to use is called gradient overlay. Do you see it there? It's called FX, gradient overlay. If I click on that, it's going to give me an option to apply gradient to this. Now, right now the gradient is a white to like a gray. You can barely see it, but it's a white to a gray. And it's linear, which means it goes in a line. It's normal. Leave the blend mode to normal. The opacity is 100%, which means the gradient's totally covering that horrible green that was there. And then this is the angle that the gradient's at, and this is a scale on how big the gradient is, and you can see how it adjusted. So right now, it's just going from this light gray to a middle gray. You can barely see it here. But if I click on this box right here, it'll bring up the gradient window. This is the common gradient window. This is what it looks like in Illustrator. This is what it looks like in Photoshop. This is the way it looks like in every program that Adobe makes. It's called the Gradient Editor. Right now, again, like I said, we have gray to white. Now, to change the colors for your gradient, you have these little boxes that are here. Okay, the top one is opacity. The bottom one is the color. If you want your gradient to be 100%, just don't mess with the opacity.
But down here you'll notice you have these ones right here. If I click on one of these boxes, it'll then put a color down here. In that color, then I can actually change the color. So again, I clicked on this first little box right here, and then down here is a little color square, and I can either choose from foreground, background color, or I can click on the box itself and choose one of the colors. I was going to use a light gray, a light blue, wasn't I, or something like that. There we go. Maybe, oosh, that's pretty ugly. I want a nice light blue. There we go. Or you want to make a sunset for our for a travel site. What do you guys want to do? How about a light blue sky, and then we'll do a really slight kind of real slight kind of gradient for the sunset, and then dark down here. So again, I put a nice kind of light blue. Again, how did I do that? I clicked in this box, and right here is the color. Let's put a dark color at the bottom. Over here is the bottom color right here. You can see it, this gray right here. If I click on that, it changes over here to a gray. If I click on that, let's put a dark one down there. There we go. There we go. So I have a blue that goes from a dark blue to a light blue. Do you see that? If you want to add a color to your gradient, you click down here and it will actually add a color. So I don't want it to be so even all the way. I just want it to be kind of slight at the very top up here. So if I click here, I can actually add another color along this bar right here, boom, and it actually add the regional blue, which is this is kind of more of the look I was hoping for. But I could actually change the color a little bit. Maybe we'll make it a little bit purple. We give ourselves a little purple. There's a little diamond in between. It allows you to adjust the way where the gradient is. Oh, if you actually add one that you didn't want, you just click on it and drag straight down. Watch how I remove one. I put one in there and I didn't want it in there. Boom. I just click and hold the left mouse down and drag down. Drag down. Click to add, remove. Click to add, remove. Click to add, remove. And so you can see how you can adjust the amount of gradient there. And so then if I'm done, I can hit OK and hit OK. And you can see you have a nice sort of gradient out there. Right there. It's a nice gradient at the top of my website that I can then simulate if I was going to put this on my website inside of a encoding. I would do this using CSS. So I'll pause for a moment. Again, a lot of common things that you might make is a submit box or something like that. Again, I tend to use mostly these shapes right here, and of course, those of you who have the new version don't have a round rectangle tool, you just have a rectangle tool. I know that if you have the new version. Again, I'm going to use no stroke, but a gray inside. If I click on the fill box here, and you want to type in, you can select one of the grays here. I'm just going to do a kind of a dark gray. If you want to make your own color, you click on this little box right here, and it'll make a color as well. Or you can also change it later, and I will show you how to do that with the effects. Remember the effects that we were doing? So I'm going to use a rectangle tool, and again, we're going to put in a box, and that box will say, now when you type in text, don't type it in the box. And who has this horrible green thing on here? Why is there a horrible green thing on here? Somebody, it must be a teacher's option. Where is it? Sue's class. Look, see Sue. Yeah, Sue. Evil. You set it to regular. Oh, jeez. Really? No? I'm going to be stuck with the... Oh. Okay, whatever. I guess I'm going to have to live with this horrible green. So again, what did we say we're going to call it? What did I write on the board? Give us info? Is that what I wrote? Give us info? Okay, Futura. Remember, I'm using Futura here. In Futura, I'm going to use medium. 72 is 1 inch. This is the color. I don't want purple. I'm going to do black. So I'm going to click. Don't click inside the box. Here's the problem. If you click in a box, it thinks you want to attach the text to that box, and it's like a mess. So don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. In fact, I'm just going to delete this whole thing. Go away. Okay, let me start again. I'm going to draw my box. Why is it horrible green? I don't know. Again, I'm going to click underneath it and type in give us your info. And of course, that's too big here. It's like an inch tall. We'll go down to 30 point. That's too big too. Let's go to 18. And let's put it in our box. Okay. And then you can adjust your position. Now, I'm not going to actually, let's make this a little bigger. There we go. Apply. Again, if you want to transform objects, use the move tool and then show transform controls. Do you see them right here? Show transform controls. Next, I'm going to duplicate these objects by selecting both of them. One way to select both of them is to come over here and select both of them in the layers window. If things are not working the way you want them to work, hit escape on the keyboard. So again, I'm going to select both of these, holding the shift key or command key down, and I'm going to duplicate them by using the option key on the keyboard. By using the option key to click and drag, it'll keep the box consistent, and then I'm just going to change the size of this box. Oh, not both of them. Don't do that. I just want to change the size of the box. Again, no, I didn't want to do both of them. Whoosh, escape. Give me just the box. Again, I'm using the layers window to select what I want. And so this one, we don't want to make it bigger. I want to make it just deeper. There we go. There you go. And then so when you're done dragging or doing anything inside of Photoshop, always click on the move tool and say apply. So now I have that. Now I just need to change the text, and that was going to be what? Comment, right? Comment, C-O-M-M-E-N-T, comment. Okay, and then the last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to duplicate these again. I'm going to duplicate them again. Shift or Command, click on both of them. Use the move tool. Hold down the option key on the keyboard. Click and drag. And this one, then I'm going to change the text to. When you're done, I can click on the text here and use the text tool, and let's call it submit. Submit. And then of course I don't want the submit box to be so big. I can click and move it maybe a little smaller, and maybe a little smaller, make it nice and even in there like that. And then always go to the move tool if you make an adjustment and hit it, so you hit apply. Of course this doesn't look even. Let's move this a little bit. And then again, always click on the move tool when you're done and hit apply. And of course this is not nice and even there, so I might need to select both of them. You can move things with the arrows on the keyboard as well. I'm trying to make even space between here, and then here and there. But you know, that might be a good way of going about doing things. Okay, do you see how I'm just making boxes and putting text inside the boxes? Just using standard shapes are a great way to go. Now if you want to change the color of a shape, you can do something called add a color overlay. Do you remember when we made the gradient up here for the sky? Remember we made a gradient up here for the sky, and we used something called an effects? Well, you can do the same thing with a box, with a rectangle. Again, you'll see it's called rectangle over here. If you select your rectangle, let's say we select the top rectangle right here, you can see, again, things inside of Photoshop layer up. So this is the first one, and when I duplicated it, it made one above it, and it made one above it. So that's why this rectangle is this one right here. if I click on the rectangle here, I can go to remember the effects that we were using before for the gradient overlay? And you'll notice inside there is an effects for this rectangle right here. If I click on the effects for the rectangle, you'll notice there's one called color overlay. You can barely see it, I know on the screen towards the bottom, but it's called color overlay. If you click on the color overlay, it'll allow you to change the color, okay? And somebody has the opacity down to there, you gotta go to 100%. So make sure the opacity is at 100%, and then you can change the color here. And so let's say I wanted it to be a lighter gray. I can make it a lighter gray. You can see it's a little bit lighter. Let me exaggerate that. It's a little lighter gray. And I can hit OK. Very nice, very nice. It's a lighter gray. I like that better than that darker gray. And again, 100% opacity, hit OK. So if you notice in the layer window, it made an effect called color overlay in the layer window there. So I have two more boxes that are not this light gray, but they're the dark gray from previous way of doing it, right? So what I can do then is I can then take this overlay that you see here and I can duplicate it onto these other rectangles. Again, to duplicate something on the keyboard is what? What's the magic key on the keyboard? Say it all at the same time. Option, right? So again, in the layers window, if you want to duplicate this color overlay, if you hold down the option key and click the effect, option, click and drag the effect to another one, it'll apply it. Click and drag it to another one, it'll apply it. So you can apply those effects to your other objects. Just like that, remember we did the gradient for the box at the top? I can actually duplicate that gradient to another box by taking that and putting it on another box. Look at that. Ooh! Oh, that's pretty ugly. We definitely don't want to do that. But again, by using these effects here, these effects over here, you can quickly change things without having to adjust the original artwork. Then you can duplicate that object or that effect you did to other objects inside the layer window. We already talked about how to find copyright stuff that we could use. Again, Flickr is a good place. And what did we type in last time? We typed in dude, right? This is travel person. How about we type in travel person? Is that a type of person? Travel person? No. No. Maybe. This might be a good travel person. This guy's a travel person, right? That's kind of a good travel person. Too big though. Too much data. I just want just a portrait. There's a travel dude. Nah, he doesn't look like a traveler. He looks like somebody I would see on a travel. These are all too small. This kid's cute. Very cute. I love the ice cream here. Boy, I'm going to go with this one. Love the ice cream. But, oh, it's okay quality. Okay. I'm going to go with this. So, I'm going to cheat. Cheating's better than not cheating, right? Cheating's good. So, I don't need all this other crap around there. What do you think I'm going to do? Take a screen grab, right? I'm going to steal this picture with the screen grab. Command-Shift-4. I don't need to use this whole photo. I just need to use her face, right? Her face. So I'm just going to draw a screen grab kind of for the space that I need. Take a picture of that, right? You're used to doing the screen grabs. I'd take probably 30 screen grabs a day, easily. Mostly of web research. So I stole this photo. Sorry, whoever you are. I'm probably going to get sued. Hey, we're in the classroom. We can steal. In Photoshop, again, I'm going to bring in that picture. So if you remember how to put a picture into my interface that I'm working on, I can go underneath File, Place. I'm going to use Place Embedded. And I'm going to find that picture that I stole. That picture is located on the desktop as a screen grab. And if it's really big, it's okay, don't stress. Here's one way that you can scale. Whenever you put something in there, like a picture that I just placed, you'll notice at the very top of the screen, you'll see there is a W and an H. W stands for width, H stands for height. Before I start dragging, and you notice if I put my cursor over top of the H or the W up there, I get a cursor that kind of goes horizontally across, okay? So you can actually drag in Photoshop with this cursor. If I click between, you'll notice there is one that's a linking option there. See it? Maintain aspect ratio right there. I'm going to click on that first. Then I'm going to put my cursor over the H. I'm going to hold the left mouse down and I'm going to drag to the left. Left means it's going to get smaller, right means it's going to get bigger. Smaller, bigger. So again, I'm scaling, 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 scaling down. And I'm going to move it maybe to where I want it to be. And I'm going to always click the move tool when you're done. Boom. And say place. There we go. Let me do that one more time for you. Here we go. I'm going to place an object inside of my interface and I'm going to scale it. I'm going to keep this. Here we go. I'm going to go under File, Place, Embedded, so it becomes part of Photoshop, not linked. That'll be outside this document. Place Embedded. I'm going to choose a screen grab or something. What do I got? I got another screen grab. What is this? There we go. This object. So I want to scale this down. So you'll notice once I place it into Photoshop, you'll notice you have a W at the top and an H at the top. I'm going to click between them, which says maintain aspect ratio, which kind of makes sure that the width and height stay the same so they don't get warped or stretched. Then I'm going to put my cursor over the H right there or over the W, it doesn't matter. You'll notice you get a finger that points up with arrows pointing left and right. If I click with my left mouse and drag, you'll notice it will scale that object down. Okay, or you can type in percentage if you know what you want to scale. Again, this is just going like this. Okay, it's right here. When you're done doing that or doing whatever you want with it, you hit the move tool and say apply or place, and it'll place that object there at that setting. Did you see that? Okay, so try that. Make sure you know how to do that. That's important that you know how to. So again, to do the effect here, find your layer. This one right here. You might even name your layer. Remember naming it. Screenshot isn't a good one. This is going to be my person 1. How about that? Person 1. You can name layers over there. So we have person. Next, I'm going to make an oval over top of this image of this person. Again, I'm going to use the ellipse tool, right? Remember, there are objects here. You got your rectangle, you got your round rectangle, you got your ellipse, polygon, line tool, custom shape tool. I'm going to use the ellipse tool. And I'm going to put my cursor in the upper left corner of this picture of this person. And I'm going to drag. While I'm dragging, I'm going to use the shift key to give me a complete, what am I trying to do? Perfect circle. Shift perfect circle. Boom. Makes a beautiful circle over top. You can use the arrow tools to move it around if you want. If you have the move tool selected, arrow tools, you can do that. Maybe center it just briefly. Why did I start in the upper left corner? Because when you drag objects, they drag from corner to corner. Here's 2 ways of doing it. Let me do another one. I'm going to delete this ellipse. Okay. Here's another way of doing it. What if you wanted the circle to grow from the center out? Because usually here, when you're drawing with an object, again, here's an object, the ellipse tool. You either, when you click, you see how it drags from either there or there? It goes from, kind of grows like that. Do you see that? And if you hold the shift key down, it's growing in a perfect circle. Shift makes a perfect circle. Shift. Again, that is not, I'm going to delete that. Or, yeah. So again, that's why I kind of started in the upper left corner. But what if you wanted to actually drag from the center out? If you click and start dragging with the circle and hold the Option key down, you can drag from the center out, Option, and then shift the cursor to make the perfect circle. So try that. Make sure you know how to do that. That's a very important skill. Very important skill. Again, Try practicing using the circle tool. Try practicing using the circle tool. Again, one way is to put it in the upper left corner, and you can drag like this, make a nice perfect circle. Or if you want, I'm going to hit delete. If you want to go from the center out, like I want to make sure it's right in the center of her face, I would click with the left mouse to start dragging the circle, but before I've finished dragging it, I'm going to hold down the Option key, Option on the keyboard, and it'll drag from the center out, and make sure you hit the Shift key to make a perfect circle, like that. Try that, make sure you know how to do that. Okay, so to make the clipping mask, you need to, was it to put the object underneath it, right? Under the photo? I think that was it, right? We take the object and it has to be, so right now we have the ellipse over top of the person, right? I think we need to take the ellipse and put it under the person. So again, you have to drag things around. Look how I can drag things around inside the layer window. Do you see that? Dragging things around in the layer window. Dragging things around in the layer window. So I want the ellipse underneath the person. Underneath the person. Then I'm going to click on the person itself, and then to apply the clipping mask, I'm going to go underneath image, or no, layer, I'm sorry, layer, create clipping mask, create clipping mask, and she is now in a circle. You see that? Again, the ellipse is under the photo. You click on the photo and go under layer, create clipping mask. If you don't want it, you say release clipping mask. Layer, create clipping mask. Layer, release clipping mask. Layer, create clipping mask. Boom. Okay, so the order is important over here, as well as, okay, now we want to have a nice sort of line that goes around her, right? Because she's kind of just floating. There's no frame for this shape. So we want to make a nice shape that goes around there. So I'm going to click on the ellipse itself, and I'm going to go to the effects. Remember the effects down here? The effects here, and I'm going to add a stroke. And then it's going to be on the outside, and I'm going to change the color here to a nice light blue. And oops, this is in the stroke there's a size. Let's give her a nice kind of 3 or something. That looks good. Outside or inside, inside, outside, center. You have some options there. You have an opacity if you want to change it from transparent. You have a fill with a color right here, and again, it's called stroke, and it gives you a, now don't think of this green, that green is the selection green. Just hit the move tool, and you'll see what it looks like. Again, I applied the effect to the ellipse that's underneath there, the ellipse we used for the mask. I applied that to anything like the stroke that I just applied to this photo. If you double click on it in the layer window twice, it'll open it up and you can then go and change it. Suck up this dark blue right there. Boom. There we go. Double click on it there, and then you can change it. Change it. Did you see how to change the color of the effect? Make a mask. Did you get the circle? Was that an angry person? He's a grumpy looking person. Grumpy looking person. Okay, let's put our text next to here. We'll put a nice little comment. And then we'll put our stars, our rating stars, just like we drew on the board. Okay? So here we go. So let's put our text next to this wonderful graphic here. To do that, I'm going to use a box of text. If you remember when we were using the text tool here, I'm going to use the horizontal text tool. Now, you might want to put some lines there, so I'm going to put a line at the top. Remember, a guideline, maybe a guideline at the bottom here, and then maybe a guideline over here, and so on. So I'm putting some guidelines there to help me line things up. Again, how do you put these lines on there? You just put them here. Look, put your cursor in there and drag a line out. Put a cursor in there, drag a line out. These lines are not visible when you save. Well, when you save it in Photoshop, it's still there. But if you saved it as JPEG and stuff, those lines wouldn't be there. So just by putting some lines around there helps me line things up, right? Again, how I put the guidelines on is by putting my cursor in the ruler and dragging out like this. There we go. That looks like a good size box for my testimonial. Again, you put your cursor. If you don't see the rulers inside of Photoshop, where do we find rulers? View, rulers, view, rulers. If you don't want to see the guidelines, you can turn them off by going under View, Show, Guidelines, View, Show, Guides. Let's make a box. Now, I'm not going to make a box for the whole thing. I'm going to make a box for just part of this. So I'm going to drag a box probably about like this, because below I'm going to have a rating. And then I'm going to type in my text. I loved this place. Uh-oh, why don't I see it? Well, it's typing with white, I guess. I don't know. It's typing some kind of text. How come I don't see it? Looks black. No. Black? How about red? No. Oh. It's stuck. Here we go. Here's a problem. You notice it put it in the mask because I typed the text there. I need to get it outside. If you look here, the text layer is actually inside this mask somehow. I'm going to move it out because I had that selected first. That's probably. Whoosh! Maybe make a new layer before you do your text. That's a problem I see. This place was the greatest vacation ever. I slept the entire time. I would recommend to everyone blah 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 blah. Again, let's make it black. Okay, so I have my little recommendation right there. Again, the problem you might have is that my first problem was I made the text inside of the clipping mask because I had this selected, remember? Because I put a stroke there, and so when I added the text, it actually put it in between the person and the ellipse. It actually added it there. You didn't want it there. I actually moved it out. Or click somewhere up here and then type in your text. That was a problem. Next, I'm going to put rating text. I'm going to put some more text in here. I'm going to call it rating. Rating, and let's make that a little bit bigger. I'm going to make that a little bit larger. Okay, and then I'm going to make my, and let me move that over so it's lined up. And then I'm going to make my stars next to it. So how do I make a star? To make a star inside of Photoshop is quite easy. There is a star making tool. That star making tool is actually under the shapes right here. And inside the shapes, you'll notice there's one called Polygon Tool, the Polygon Tool. If I use the Polygon Tool and I click on the screen, it'll come up with an option of a polygon. Well, I don't really want a polygon, I want a star. And if you click, you'll notice it says star right there. And if I hit OK, it'll make me a star. Okay, again, how did I make a star inside of Photoshop? Again, I used the Polygon tool. Remember, we've been making rectangles. We did the ellipse. This time I used the Polygon tool. Using the Polygon tool, I just click on the screen, and when you click, it says create a polygon. Yes, but I want it to be a star. Do you see where it says star right there? I clicked on that and hit OK, and it makes me this beautiful star. So I'm going to rotate that so that it's nice and even. And again, rotating, again, you can use the move tool right here. And if you put your cursor along the edge of the move tool, you'll notice you get an arrow that points in directions like this. This is the actual rotation option, and I can put my cursor to scale it down. It's a little bit big, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. And here we go. I'm going to take that and kind of put it above there. Here we go. I'm going to scale that down a little bit, and then let's put it up there. Maybe make it almost the same size as the font. That's what I really want it to be. You want to make things that are similar in size so that they have a relationship between each other. Things that are big and small don't look very good. Try and make things that are similar in size so that they relate to each other. So I have one star right there. Let me make it a little bit bigger here. So I have one star here, and I'm going to duplicate that. Remember, the key on the keyboard to duplicate is Option. So let's duplicate 1, 2, 3. Oh, look at that. I grabbed that center thing. You didn't want that. I'm going to hit Escape. Make sure you avoid that center thing. That's the rotating point. Option, click and drag. Option, click and drag. So I have 5 stars now. Now here we go. We wanted, what, 3 stars out of 5? So to do that, I'm going to select the first 3 of them. And then again, remember, to add color to something, don't try and color it. Use your effects. Remember the effects that I was just talking about? I'm going, oh, I can't apply effects to multiple selected objects, not unless they're a group, and since they're not a group, I can't do that. But what can I do? Well, I can grab the first one, and I can apply the effects to that first one. Remember, it's called Color Overlay, and if we want, what do we want to do? Gold, right? Was it gold? We're going to do a gold star. There's a gold one. Can you see that? Gold, maybe a little bit darker gold. Whoosh, that's pretty ugly. How about more like that? How about that? So again, I did a gold star, but once I applied that effects to that gold star, I can duplicate it. Remember, Option, click and drag, Option, click and drag, and now I got 3-star rating for this. So again, I was able to build this example of text, person in a circle, rating, and doing all the same techniques I've been doing with shapes and effects there.